Reps love money. Reps like attention. Reps like being asked their opinion.
Don't rely on your AI functionalities. Nobody give a damn.
You didn't have the luxury of features.
Would that be fair to say it's a curse to be in tech? Hello. This is Michael, CEO at SellMeThisPen AI. And for those who don't know what SellMeThisPen is an AI coach that helps reps before, during, and after client calls through role-play practices, real-time coaching, while taking care of their non-revenue tasks like CRM updates or note-taking. All right, less about me and a little bit more about our amazing guests. So today I have Graeme Pitches. He started his career as a fuel trader, where he learned to deal with large deals in a very competitive space. Then he transitioned into tech sales and eventually moved to revenue enablement, working with interesting organizations in Cleantech, the Salesforce ecosystem, Fintech, and most recently serving as the revenue enablement team lead at Katana. So today we're going to figure out how to enable our sellers to high perform in really high competitive markets. Graeme, so good to have you on the show. From what I understand, you had a very different career than tech sales. Tell me a little bit more about this and how you actually got into it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Michael. So I always like to joke that, this is fairly well known, that everyone kind of, falls into sales by accident. And I think like to kind of take it a bit of a step further. They fall into sales enablement even more by accident as kind of a rule of thumb, and certainly, no exception to that rule for myself. Despite kind of, being born and bred in, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, I actually began my career in Australia. So took off about a couple weeks after university finished, which was supposed to be a 6-month backpacking trip. I managed to get a trainee position in the shipping industry, buying and selling fuel for shipping companies. And that 6 months turned into 11 years with stints in Australia, tour duty in Singapore, and a slight diversion adventure, maybe call it a misadventure, in Indonesia. And certainly kind of, during kind of the first 11 years of my career, really developed a bit of a maybe healthy, unhealthy curiosity as to kind of what separated the top reps from kind of your middle and your bottom. So to fast forward, obviously, a few years, moved back to Vancouver, was very privileged to be able to get in as the first employee at a tech startup, kind of working kind of the tech industry, and then worked another couple quota carrying roles. And actually, in terms of how I got into enablement, I was with a tech company, and initially, doing kind of a quota carrying role, but a bit of partner management as well as kind of CS. And the value that I actually was providing to the company was a lot more on the enablement side, right? Not so much kind of doing the direct selling. So again, we all kind of fall into by accident and kind of sat down and kind of figured out, okay, hey, what's this role? How can we kind of title it? We sort of put our heads together and say, hey, it sounds like this is enablement. So the rest is history.
It seems like you're a traveler, and I love that. We need to definitely sit down and chat about all the stories. But look, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on some of the similarities being a seller in these competitive industries compared to tech. I'm sure there are some similarities you can share with us, so I'm really curious to hear that.
Yeah, sure. So I guess a bit of background. So I what was called a bunker fuel trader. So bunker fuel, Michael, is your fuel, that specific grade of fuel that powers your, say, cruise ships transporting passengers from Vancouver to Alaska, powering your container ship that has all of your junk, all your stuff, from a ship transitioning from, say, China to the West Coast here in North America. Obviously, here in Canada, we're big grain exporters, right? So powering those ships that are exporting those commodities. And I guess the interesting thing about bunker fuel trading is that you were selling the exact same grade of fuel, the exact same suppliers you were using, the exact same delivery method, but it was how you sold which got you the deal or not. Obviously, price was very, very important, right? But kind of again, what sort of separated the wheat from the chaff was really these top reps who were able to effectively leverage how they sold, because you didn't have the luxury of features, right? Fuel doesn't have features. So Michael, you're based obviously in the GTA, so you're ripping up the 405, so up to the Muskokas for the weekend. You've got, Shell, you've got BP, you've got Petro-Canada as a gas station. What would make you actually choose one of those service stations to pull over to?
That's a great question. To me, honestly, the distance, because I'm a risky driver, I would say. When I see, it goes down, I'm like, oh, what's next? Let's just pick one and do. Like, honestly, nothing. It's just like buying a milk. Like, I just look at what's in front of me and I just pick it.
Okay. Well, I'll take this a step further. So yeah, Ozzy, as a father of two, and we do a few road trips as well too, right? Again, all things being equal, they're selling the exact same fuel,
Yeah.
right? But the reason why we would go to a specific gas station would be they've got a bigger parking lot, so we actually get a spot, right? They have multiple bathrooms so that your kids can go to the bathroom. They have a Starbucks so that your wife can get a Starbucks. So everything beyond just the fuel that you're buying, right? That's kind of the value. What do they allow you to do? And you see a lot of the service stations do that. So again, they're very similar to kind of the commodity space for the shipping side was that, you had to become that trusted advisor for the purchasers of this fuel, right? So fuel is, the largest cost for a ship to operate, right? So again, you didn't have these features to fall back upon. And your kind of job as that trusted advisor was to kind of guide the fuel buyers through the complexities of purchasing fuel in ports all over the world.
Can you share an example? Like when you deal with a client, obviously like they have all these options in front of them, right? They're like, okay, everybody's the same. I'm looking for fuel. And you mentioned something interesting about how you sell mattered a lot. So just give me an example, like how did you differentiate yourself getting in front of, some of these clients and, trying to position yourself as a trusted advisor?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well, I'll full disclosure, I wouldn't call myself an A player. I was probably a B plus, maybe an A minus, depending the way the wind's blowing, Michael. So, but again, I was very, very fortunate, to work in Singapore, which is kind of the Wall Street of fuel trading, and to kind of, put in perspective the amount of fuel that is sold in Vancouver on an annual basis. Singapore does every 4 days, right? Wow. So tons of volume, tons of vessels, tons of customers. And I guess kind of a few common themes and kind of some specific examples were, customers where in the top reps were able to do this was kind of your challenger sale, right? So they're trying to highlight or shine light on a problem the customer didn't know they had. So a very specific example, Michael, would be a container ship loading containers in China, right? They're going to discharge some containers in Prince Rupert in Northern Canada, drop them off here in Vancouver, maybe go down to Seattle, Tacoma, Portland, LA, Long Beach. And they need to take fuel at one of those ports. So they might show up to, say, Vancouver here and expect that, the fuel is going to be available and it's going to be the cheapest price out of those ports. But again, as that trusted advisor, your goal was to be able to show them, here's kind of all your options. Here's something you may not have thought of. Example, Vancouver here in the middle of summertime, it's cruise ship season, right? So all the fuel supply is all geared towards those cruise ships. So you might be a ship thinking, hey, I can get my fuel in Vancouver during this window of time where I'm here, but the fuel's not available, right? Or you think Vancouver is going to be the cheapest price. You don't realize that, hey, LA Long Beach is the cheapest price, right? So again, it's having this information. Again, you couldn't fall back on your features because fuel doesn't have features. If you were kind of a winning by design spiced fan, which I certainly am and certainly had it in a previous role, again, what top reps used in the fuel industry was really honing around that critical event and what happens if you miss. So Mr. and Mrs. Customer, if you are taking fuel in Vancouver, right, what happens if your vessel is delayed? Right? What is the economic consequence of that? Right? What's the economic consequence of you having to delay your vessel by a day or two? Right? So, and again, it's one of these things where if you don't overpromise, right, you develop as kind of that trusted advisor to the customer. You can get a lot of these brokers, they're usually young, keen, and overpromise and underdeliver. I would say I was myself when I was when I started out as well too. Whereas you have kind of your gap selling. right? Where
Mm.
you have, your desired, your current state, right? And the current state might be they've dealt with a specific broker or trader who always overpromised and underdelivered. The desired future state would be that they want to have their fuel barge right there when they come into the port, right? So
Mm.
again, all these kind of themes, and I didn't know any sales methodologies or frameworks when I was doing the
Mm.
commodity trading, but very fortunate, kind of in my second tech sales life to kind of see, learn some of these methodologies and sort of see how those were applied by the top reps in the fuel trading industry.
Interesting. So it seems like instead of just being a seller, pushing or overselling, some of the things that you didn't have the luxury of talking about like features, like like what we do right now. We are in a new space. We are creating a new, market, and naturally, people are curious about like, oh, AI, like how things work in AI even is interesting. So you can rely on the product you're selling, but it seems like in the space you were in, you had to do tons of research and be always updated about what's coming next and educate your buyers and kind of like poke them just to say, look, dude, if you don't take care of this, that might actually happen and the impact would be massive. And that's how you gain their trust. And when you got into tech sales, you realized that yes, although you didn't know about sales methodologies, you mentioned, winning by design or gap selling, you kind of like naturally applied some of those, steps from those methodologies, naturally. And that kind of like help you position yourself as a trusted advisor for your clients.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the different challenges enablement teams face when it comes to upskilling reps in highly competitive markets. We talk about tech sales, but I want to hear your thoughts. Like, how do you compare, different markets when it comes to enabling sellers?
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't have that luxury of being that kind of clear market leader, right? We're not all, Zoom in kind of March and April of 2010. We're not all, Salesforce in kind of the early 2010s as
Yep.
well, too. So the how you sell, becomes really, really important. And again, it doesn't matter if you are a market leader enterprise sale or you're an up and coming AI call coaching software,
Yep.
right? So, that how you sell, should be a free sample of how you solve. And again, I understand why traditionally the industry has been reliant and sales reps have been reliant on demoing their specific features. And the reason why is the last, call it, 10, 15 years, there's been some unbelievable software products developed, right? Some unbelievable features developed, right? But what is missing, I think, with a lot of enablement programs and a lot of sales reps as well, too, is really that focus on that impact, the focus on that outcome. What does it allow customers to do? I think especially too, I'm sure you've seen this now as well, Mike, a lot of these traditional software companies, they're putting an AI wrapper on top of their platform. And I think the temptation as a rep is just to say, hey, here's our whiz-bang AI functionality we have without clearly articulating to the customers what does it allow them to do. So
Hmm.
if you're a lawyer, right, hey, here's what our AI allows you to do. It allows you to better manage your practice, right? It allows you to automate a lot of your back office processes so that you can better service your clients, provide better service so that they will bring in more recommendations and more clients so that you can bring in more revenue, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
are a inventory manager coming up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right? If there's some AI feature that you have with your software, you need to clearly articulate that it helps them prevent the overstock. So having all their stock sitting in the warehouse, and obviously with interest rates right now, having capital tied up there, or not having enough product available to sell, so losing revenue. Similar with
Mm-hmm.
you as well too, Michael, in terms of like outcomes with enablement leaders or with sales and revenue leaders as well too, right? What does your product allow them to do? It allows them to not have to do all of the role playing and save that time when onboarding new reps or when you release a new product. So again, I think it's this traditional, sort of gut reaction, and I understand it to sort of just go off and just demo these features. without really focusing on the impact.
Would that be fair to say it's a curse to be in tech? Again, being an enabler in tech, because again, naturally you're more lean towards like product advancement. I was watching this interview that the founder of Saster said, what's really bad right now in the industry? Sellers don't have enough product knowledge, so they rely on sales engineers just to do their job. I would say it's a fine line. Like it's great to have product knowledge, but then if you rely too much on product, and to your point, like AI is a big thing right now. Every rep who gets on a call get excited. We have this new AI functionality that we just realized. I don't give a damn. What problem are you solving, and what's your unique value proposition? And just explain it to me the way I understand it. I don't care about your tech. I have a problem. That's why I'm on the call. All right,
Yeah,
fair.
certainly. Yeah,
Fair.
and I know a framework that we've used in previous companies before, and this thing we ripped this from Chris Orleb. When you are demoing your product, instead of jumping in and sort of popping wheelies with all your features, before each feature you kind of frame it, right? So you say, because you had mentioned and the pain point that you just uncovered during the discovery, what I'm about to show you allows you to, right? What does allow them to do? Then you
Exactly.
demo the feature, then you stand back and you pause and say, listen, okay, again, this is for each feature that you demo. How does this compare to how you're currently doing things? Again, creating that gap. Can you guys see yourself using this? What impact would this have, or to what extent this could be useful for your organization? So again, I think to sort of get out of kind of that initial reflex just to monologue and demo features, if you kind of frame them with the pain that you uncovered during the discovery, tie that to the impact and the outcome that they're trying to achieve, you can kind of set yourself apart regardless of your product, regardless of if it's feature paired with your competitors. I think that's something that's really missing.
That is true. I think we share the same sentiment. So just imagine you join a new company right now, you inherit a team, and you want to roll out a new program to teach this to reps. Like, hey, don't feature them. don't rely on your AI functionalities. Nobody give a damn, right? How do you make sure that you drive enough adoption so these reps actually understand why they're doing this? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the meat and potatoes of enablement, right? I know enablement has a lot of definitions and means different things, to different companies and different teams. And I think that what's beautiful, Michael, about the enablement community is that there's a lot of information sharing and mentorship, right? And a lot of kind of taking ideas that you may have heard at a conference or through a mentor, kind of putting them in your own handwriting and implementing them with your team. So I know what's worked before for us, and I will give full credit where credit is due to Chuck Marcroulier, based out of Seattle. He heads up the RES chapter there as well too. I got to know Chuck last year, and at one of his talks, he was speaking about this Domino Rep Theory. You familiar with it at all, Michael? Have you come across it before, or?
I believe you shared it at some point. So
Yeah,
just
okay.
super excited for you to share it again for listeners.
Yeah, no, fair. Again, I wish I had come up with the term, but this was again full credit to Chuck. And I guess what the Domino Rep Theory taps into, Michael, obviously you sold for a number of years, is a couple different emotional things that reps like. Reps love money. Let's all admit that. Reps like attention, right? And reps like being asked their opinion and what they feel they need in order to sell to their market. And this domino rep theory that Chuck kind of talked about during his talk was really, say you're it's kind of end of Q3, right? And you're planning your enablement program for Q4, right? So you're kind of working on kind of quarterly enablement programs, right? So you've kind of done your discovery with the sales leadership, aligned with the OKRs if you're an OKR company, right? You kind of got a normal bit of a framework of the enablement program you're going to run. And then you pick one or two, depending on the size of the team, maybe more, one or two reps. And you don't pick your top rep, right? You want to pick some of these up and comers, right? People who, if they are doing something, people will kind of pay attention, right? Ones that are kind of moving up the leaderboard. You can say, hey, listen, Adrian, Christian, right? Here's kind of the program I'm thinking, right? Would love to get your take on it. Would love to get your opinion. And I found, Michael, that again, despite how much time we've done before on prepping for the program and the research and the methodology, getting their opinion before you actually start, they always come up with something you didn't think of, right? I really wish I could have thought of that, right? So you kind of get their opinion. You might kind of tweak a few things and say, hey, listen, Adrian, Christian, would you guys mind like trying this in the field? Before I kind of do the training for the whole team, right? And again, you're not sort of not too hard on it, right? Again, give them a couple of chances to kind of get it right. So they go and they try it out. Again, maybe there's a few tweaks there, so that when you actually do the training for the whole team, right? You're doing your obviously methodology, your role plays, your reinforcement, your certifications, and then you're showing the whole team, hey, here's Adrian and Christian actually doing this in the field, right? So don't take my word for it. Here's your colleagues actually doing this, right? And then your top reps go, oh, geez, if they're doing it, I can do it, right? And then your other reps are like, listen, I want to have that attention, right? And then what you do is kind of a bit of a thank you. So listen, Adrian, Christian, thanks for taking the time. Obviously, you're taking a bit out of the field to help with the programming. Do you mind if I send those clips to your sales manager or to the CRO or CEO? Right? Then you take those clips of them doing this in the wild. Maybe you take a clip from, how they previously used to do it. And then, you let the CRO know, right? And you let them know as well too. And, I've found that once I learned this from, again, full credit to Chuck, it really changed kind of how we did enablement. And, I've shared this with a few other contacts that I have in the enablement space. And someone I was speaking to actually last week, she was saying that now she actually has reps competing to become Domino reps for her. They're like, hey, what programs are you guys doing for Q4? We would love to kind of try this out. Right.
This
and to kind of take it a step
yeah.
further, if you want to put a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons, right? What you do is you get maybe someone who's relatively new to the company, maybe only been there for a couple months.
Yeah.
Hey, that gentleman just joined a couple months, but look at him getting all that attention, doing that talk track or using that slide, right? So again, it's something that, I've stolen from Chuck, kind of put in the handwriting of, my previous company. But yeah, if you can kind of sort of tap into that, definitely it helps.
I really like this. It's such a smart, tactic, if you will, to really get, engagement and kind of like partner up with these reps, to your point, up and comer ones that are really fighting for something. If you know that something, even that helps of, understanding the why behind like why they are doing this, then you kind of like help them promote themselves instead of the program. And by doing so, you build your case, you share it with the CEO, CRO, whoever is on the top. So you make them look like superstars. You make yourself look like superstar. The managers look like, superstars. And obviously, like, other people want to be, the next ones. This is really smart. I want to try this actually, with when we have a big sales organization. For now, again, I'm the one who's running go-to-market, so I don't know how to do it with myself. But no, I appreciate you sharing. This is interesting.
Yeah, I've actually take it a bit of a step further as well too. This is great for SKO.
Yeah,
because not only are you showcasing the clip amongst the team, but it's maybe the broader revenue organization. Right?
How would you tell me a little bit more? Have you ever done that before?
Our SKOs, a lot of the content is actually the reps. We're showcasing them using the training live with a customer.
I love it. So instead of like just doing presentations, yelling like, yeah, let's go. You have some real case studies that you can showcase, to the team. This is amazing. All right. Any screw up stories? Like you've been in a seller seat and then enablement seat. And obviously like you took a lot of risks, like trying, new methods like this domino effect. I want to hear some of the screw up stories that, things didn't go as planned and what you actually learned from them.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, I don't think you've been in enablement long enough unless you've, flown a bit too close to the sun and have your feathers singed. Certainly we all have, right? So obviously, Michael, you sold for a number of years, right? So kind of the analogy to kind of the challenges that sort of I've had are, say you spent, 9 months, Michael, closing that big deal, right? You did demo and executive alignment, you did the POC, maybe gone on site, and you close that deal. It was a huge, heavy lift for you, right?
Yep.
Then you get a deal that kind of comes along, right? And it's kind of at that 1 yard line. Again, you got executive alignment, you're solving for their pain, they got a critical event, you got the decision makers in the room. This one's easy. There's no way I'm not going to close this one. And then it doesn't close. Right. So it's you're kind of a victim of your own success. Call it overconfidence. You're like, it worked for this customer. Most of these guys and gals are going to lap it up here. And I think that's very similar to programs. And this is where I've made mistakes before for specific teams. Like, man, we ran this amazing program for this sales team. Right. Unbelievable. Every other revenue facing team here, they're just going to lap it up. Why wouldn't they want to have the results that the sales team had?
Yep.
Right. But again, and I always like to say that, you need to treat every enablement program like a sales cycle.
It
Right?
should be relevant to the team that you're working with. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to do your discovery. You need to align with the revenue leadership, those teams that you're enabling. You need to discover where the gap is, the current state, the desired future state, right? What are those agreed upon metrics? You need to give them a proposal and get that feedback and validation of that proposal. You need to get them to commit to the program, right? Taking it a step further, they've committed to. You need to onboard and implement. So that's kind of your training, your certification, your role plays. And then, next quarter, you need to retain them. You need to get them to commit to another enablement program or even the upsell where you might even go deeper with that team, be a bit more involved with that team. So again, mistakes that I've made were, again, had some great results with one team. Hey, going to be an absolute slam dunk for the others. And I think we kind of only need to make that mistake once and realize that, yes, you need to treat it as a sales cycle and that all starts with discovery.
I love it. So to me, everything boils down to discovery. You do the discovery right, even in your sales process as a seller, you have an easier time with anything else that comes after. And it sounds like being an enabler, you're still a seller. Your just bar persona has changed to your reps, to your high leadership. So I really love this approach to be really personalized to the person or organization that is in front of you, rather than just relying on your past experiences, saying, I pulled this off. I did it even for a bigger organization. This is an easy peasy task, and then you'll get surprised. Cool.
Yeah, I always like to say too, I think someone much smarter explained this to me, where in terms of like enablement, you're the product, right? The executive leadership are your venture capitalists, they're your funders, and the team leads, they are your customers.
There we go.
Right. Yep. So if you can kind of think in kind of that framework, and again, it's easy to, blur lines and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the team leads are your customers. And again, we've all been in a situation, especially in sales, where you think your product is the best thing since sliced bread, but you don't spend that time doing the discovery and realize, hey, it may not be the best fit, or kind of that flavor of your product may not be the best fit for that specific customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Look, Graeme, I remember you explained to me how you actually leverage tools that you already own inside your organization before bringing a new one. Like, for example, I remember, at some point you had access to Gong, and you leverage Gong and ChatGPT to help yourself as an enabler to run more effective, programs for your team. So I wanted to get your thoughts on what are the main use cases that sales orgs are still missing when it comes to leveraging AI. AI is a big thing. So I wanted to hear from someone like yourself who's already been there and done that.
Yeah, sure. And again, I think, leveraging other experienced enablers has helped me with this as well too. And, I think it was Christopher Kingman, who used to be with TransUnion, not sure who he is with now. He kind of, sort of introduced this concept to me when he starts his enablement programs and he goes into the revenue leadership and say, listen, guys, what sucks? Right? Let's just start there before we start talking about solutions. What sucks? And obviously, Michael, you sold for a number of years, right? And I think what sucks as a sales rep are two kind of key things: call prep, right? You know what that's like, as well as follow-ups. Right. And, how we were able to leverage ChatGPT for our call prep was that the challenge we were having is that again, common trait amongst a lot of salespeople is that it's challenging to spend that time to prep for your call, right? You want to show up to that call prepared.
Yep.
So what I actually created was a custom GPT, which is essentially a custom version of Chat GPT, where our sales reps, literally all they needed to do was type in the customer's website, and it would spit out a list of curated questions for them to use. And those curated questions took into context the customer's website and whatever they could find on the internet, took into context the value prop and kind of the industry that we were in, the problems that we solved. Again, questions kind of framed in that way, as well as in the sales framework that we were trying to get our reps to adopt. And I remember we're trying this out, and it had been a sort of playing around with it and whatnot. And one of the first times one of our reps used it, they were demoing to, I think it was like a pharmaceutical company, right? And this pharmaceutical company was going for their FDA regulation, right? And the critical event question that ChatGPT was able to come up with was, to what extent does FDA regulation in your your pursuit of this, impact you guys trying to find a solution, for some of your inventory manufacturing challenges? And the sales rep, he was like, man, that makes you sound so much more smarter than I am. Right? But for him to dig into that and into the website, into the blog posts and the socials to come up with kind of this and craft this question would have taken ages. Right. So again, it kind of is able to showcase like how they're able to show up to a call. And this is great for onboarding too. Yep. Right. If you're trying to onboard a new rep and you're trying to get to ask these specific questions, framed in the context of the value prop your company provides and the sales framework that you're trying to reinforce, it's instant. It's there. So that was kind of number one. The second thing that also sucks, maybe equally even more, is follow-up. All right, from Matthew, you're doing a lot of demos, right? So you do the demo, it's great. Then you got to type that follow-up email. You got to put the follow-up notes in your CRM. And again, I'll give full credit where credit is due. We had an absolute rock star sales manager by the name of Annette Pinelli at my previous firm. And she's like, listen, there's all these AI automated tools out here. She's like, I don't want my reps having to enter anything into the CRM from their call. Right? She was very persistent about this. So kind of did some experiments, kind of went to town on it as well too. So what we were able to do was to create a prompt that we put into Gong that extracted out the spiced framework. So situation, pain, impact, critical event, and decision, the framework that we were trying to get our reps to have that pushed over to our CRM. I won't name our CRM because I think those fields should be automatically put in as a field, put it in as a note. So the reps didn't need to put the notes into the CRM. And this was great because then once we signed up the customer, the onboarding team had all the notes there and it was automated. Then we also created a prompt that generated an email. So again, you just put the prompt into Gong, right? It pulls out all the information that's needed in a nice little email. Our reps cut and paste, chuck that into their Outlook, added some of the assets, and sent it off. I know Gong kind of has that in-house functionality now, but we actually wanted to sort of customize our own email. So kind of those two things, entering data into the CRM, putting in a follow-up email, as well as prepping for a call, were a couple things that really, really helped out. We're quite sort of early on as an organization in utilizing AI for that.
This is so interesting. I think, look, again, as enablers, the goal is to help our reps to do their jobs better, and productivity is definitely part of it. It's so annoying, like to your point, I'm still selling, just preparing like all these steps just to get to some information. We need that information upfront, right? If you can do it faster, why showing resistance? And then when it comes to follow-ups, to me is one of the most important part of enablement that sometimes actually missing and we don't pay too much attention to. So you did your demo, you don't want to get ghosted, you be relevant. How do you want to be relevant? You have a 40 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, conversation with your clients. So you can leverage AI to do this easier and faster. All right, fascinating. I'm going to steal it from you at some point. We're going to chat after this. All right.
No worries.
So my last question, someone wants to get into sales and, there are options available. You can try to get into, hot markets, market leading, solutions, or you can get into trouble and, join the dark forces like you did and start in a competitive space so you can build, maybe a better salesmanship, if you will, or maybe not. I don't know. I want to hear your opinion because you've been and done that. What's your suggestion? Where should they start? Which one is a better path?
I guess if I was selfish, I would say probably the market leader. But in reality, most spaces are competitive these days, Michael, right? I think, if I was kind of beginning, what better way to kind of, cut your teeth, get your battle scars in a hyper competitive space so that, where that how you sell, again, assuming pricing parity and feature parity with your competitors, that how you sell differentiates you, right? And I think that's something that's never changed in sales, whether you're, the IBMs back in the 1950s, or your Salesforce in the early 2010s, or your Gongs in your kind of 2020s, right? I think kind of that how you sell should be your unique selling point. And that's especially important in a competitive market. And yeah, if you can, again, feature parity, pricing parity, if you can differentiate yourself based on how you sell, you're going to set yourself up for a pretty successful sales career.
I love that. All right. Look, I appreciate you taking the time. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. If someone wants to reach out to you, first and foremost, can they and how?
Yeah, no problem. Always happy to talk enablement. Yeah, obviously you can tell I'm fairly passionate about AI and how it can help, streamlining what sucks for sales reps and for enablement professionals. So yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way to reach out to me. Look forward to having the chats.
Awesome. All right. Thanks very much. And guys, see you soon. Bye for now.